Good morning, dear friends. God is inviting you and I for a new day, a new beginning, a blank page in our lives. And we are honored to be invited to co-create in joy, in happiness, in kindness. And there's nothing better than fulfilling God's will. That's the new chapter by Emmanuel in the book FollowMe. Segue-me in Portuguese, being translated at Kardec Radio. Through the hands of the medium Chico, Xavier, Emmanuel talks about the obedience to God. He quotes Paul in a letter to the Philippians, chapter 2, verse 6. Who, being very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. What does that mean? All the sufferings of humanity in general begin with the pretension of robbing the divine power. Pride, vanity, nonsense, selfishness, perversity, rebelliousness, and oppression represent some modalities of the variety of things that we rob from God. Wars and its pestilential century, devastating passions, and spiritual disasters are consequences of such works. In the landscape of our existences, we always see the divine mercy versus human evil, celestial goodness and the disobedience of individuals, always the generous father and the improvident children, the just God and the fallen and perverted intelligences. A painful landscape everywhere in the planet, the harmony of the laws of the Lord and the discord of human beings, the providential blessing to the heavens and the terrestrial rebelliousness. For such reason, humanity, as a gigantic spider, encounters itself in the millennial labyrinth, incarcerated in criminal webs of their own action. The heart of the faithful disciple of the gospel in the days that pass by must wrap up itself with the vigorous shell of living faith, because they are called to work in a dark forest where evil became glamorous and shadow ever denser. May also the faithful disciple keep the trusting serenity of the worker, understanding the need of testimonials and sacrifices for all. Because for the sincere apprentice, the teaching must be resplendent, coming to the world through divine announcements, with the sign of a bright star, feared by authorities of the time. Jesus transformed fishermen in apostles. He cured lepers and blind people. He raised the paralytics, but he did not want to rob the divine right. And he marched one day to the mount in order to testimony his fair obedience to the Supreme Lord of Life at a cross before the spies and the irony of all. This message is unique. Many of us already know that one of the worst vices in our lives is pride. We know. And yet, we ask ourselves, what do we do with it, this knowledge? Emmanuel, in an unprecedented message, he says that our pride, our vanity, he says more, rebelliousness, selfishness, cruelty, are byproducts of our attempt to be more than God, to be God's. And he says Jesus didn't do this. He was so humble that he always referred to God, knowing that he was the divine representative. But he always said, the Father sent me here. I'm here to fulfill God's will. But what about us? Why do we have problems with our families, with our friends? Because we want to be gods in their lives. Because we want to be the one. The day we humble ourselves and do what Jesus did, work for the benefit of all, forgive, understand, forget, then we'll be fulfilling God's will, humbling ourselves, and accepting our very testimony. Let us love, dear friends, before willing to be loved. Let us understand before we want to be understood, because it is in dying the ego inside of us that we will live freely forever. The message is profound. The message is exactly what we need. Let us rejoice in prayer, meditating, and more than anything else, obeying God, praising God for life. Remember, we are not self-made. We were created by God, and thus we need to know what He wants from us. Thank you, God, time and again, for the opportunity of meditating on our obedience towards you. We're living at a society nowadays that has true aversion for the word obedience. And we want to raise above such limitations. We want to be free of such rebelliousness. We want to learn to be meek and peacemakers, to love and to understand, allowing the ego in us to die each and every day, till the day we become one with you, feeling your presence, feeling your envelopment. We rejoice. Thank you so much for your loving care. We visualize rays of healing light enveloping each one of us in kindness. We visualize healing hands applying the energy medicine that we need. The energy medicine for the mind and the bodies. We see illuminated minds enveloping each one of us in loving care. Thank you. We see healing baskets being delivered to everyone who is in the circle of prayer, live and on demand, as well as everyone who has their names in the book of prayer at Cardiac Radio, the Spirit Society of Virginia, bringing new wisdom, calmness, serenity as we face adversities. Thank you, dear Lord, and so be it. Interesting enough, dear friends, there is a psalm in the Bible, Psalm 119, and the verse, a specific verse 165 says, "Great peace have those who love the law of God, and nothing can make them stumble." Isn't that amazing? We won't find peace away from God. We need to find God. That's our exercise today. To be humble before God, to accept His designs, to accept His love. He's always generous, as Emmanuel says, always kind, always merciful, and yet we rebel against. Why? To suffer. We're tired of it, aren't we? So, dear friends, let us rejoice in the opportunity of being together. We wish you a beautiful day and night in God's love with our living faith. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Narciso. Thank you, Slavic. Thank you, friends, for joining us in this prayerful moment. We hope to see you tomorrow at another morning prayer. But stay tuned at Cardiac Radio, because there is always more to nourish our souls.